Ralph, I'm going to throw this one to you. Submit with a certified check as big as you can go.
Ian, I am so happy you threw this one to me because
okay, good.
I love this one.
I love that you're excited.
The most important. I'm pumped. And everyone on our team knows that because this is like literally what can get you a house or a condo or not.
Yes.
Like this is another huge deal breaker.
Yeah.
So what happens is in a multiple offer scenario, anybody who's coming forward with an offer without conditions is going to have an advantage, a far bigger advantage over somebody with conditions. And that's why most of the offers that are submitted, especially the successful ones, none of them have conditions. If you have that check, which is standard deposit check, is 5%, and that check is a certified check.
Sorry, Ralph, just be clear, 5% of what?
5% of the purchase price of the home or 5% of your offer. That's typical. But once you get into luxury over 2.5 million, you're looking at 10%. And so really it's a sign of good faith that you have the financial covenant to actually close on the property. And that 5 or 10% that you're putting down will get applied against your final down payment that you've worked out with your lender, because that's a good question that does come up. And it also has to change hands, even if you have an offer with no conditions, for it to be legal and binding. Like you need money to go from one party to another party when you have an accepted offer. And so if you're a seller and it's your offer day and you accept an offer, but you don't have that check and you won't get that check till the next day, or they're promising to give you the check the next day, theoretically, they may never show up with the check and that deal might fall apart. So as soon as you have that skin in the game on an accepted offer, you become firm, provided it has no conditions. And so if you have two offers, both with no conditions around the same offer price, one with the check, one without, you're going to very heavily favor the one with the check. And you always have to remember, as a buyer agent or as a buyer, you want to take away as much friction as possible for a seller or a seller's agent to advise their client to accept your offer. And the way, or one of the ways you do that, is you have that check in hand with a promise to deliver it 1 hour after acceptance so that they know you are very serious and you're taking away a huge level of friction for them to accept your offer. And having sold hundreds of properties and been on the listing side, it makes a huge difference when somebody has that check. And it makes a huge difference after you've accepted the offer and you get that check in your hand. Because if you don't, you can have a very sleepless night, or sometimes it's a couple nights until you get that, because if a deal's going to fall apart on a no condition offer, it's going to happen right there. And as a selling agent, you can lose a lot of momentum if you have to then relist the market or go back to some of the other people who offered on the property. So a check in hand is better than two in the bush.
I just want to reference that Ralph had mentioned that the deposit check should be a minimum of 5% of the offer price. And often deposit checks are 10% or higher in the luxury market. But I would even go to suggest that even if you're offering at a lower price point, 900,000, 1.2, 1.5, if you can get yourself up to that 10% of the offer price with your deposit, it is going to make you stand out in the crowd and prove that you have the means to close on the property. And again, if you're very close with one other offer and your offers are identical, both are condition free and both have a deposit check, but your deposit check is higher than the competitor number two, you will outbid them. So the more deposit you can put down, the better. And the second really ballsy move that we've seen in hyper competitive markets is that the buyer agent will deliver the deposit check to the listing brokerage before they submit their offer. So the deposit check is already sitting there at the listing brokerage, ready and willing to be accepted before they negotiate the offer. And I think that is a very ballsy move. And if your buyer really wants the property, I think that's another way to navigate and show that your clients are willing to do whatever it takes to get the deal done. So I think that's also very cool.
I feel like we could do a whole episode on deposit
just on the deposit checks alone.
Yeah. So there's two things here. Number one, we often get asked questions about, okay, so I've got this certified deposit check. What happens with it? So that certified deposit check gets made out and written to the benefit of the listing brokerage's trust account. And it sits there until closing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there is some type of a dispute where the property doesn't close, meaning this on the sale side or the buy side or both sides, then that money sits in the listing brokerage's trust account until either there's a mutual release, meaning both parties have agreed on how to distribute the funds, or there's a court order. So it's not just a slam dunk if for some reason a property doesn't close that the seller gets to keep that deposit. And on the buy side, there's a lot of regulations put around how a trust fund or trust account is to be run. And so there's a lot of guidances just to make sure that that money is protected for a purchaser, much similar to the way a lawyer's trust account would work as well. So that's one thing I wanted to touch upon. And then the other, and this is just so important, and we say this day one with all of our buyer clients.
Hallelujah.
Okay, I know that we're just starting out, so I'm telling you this, and I hope you retain this information, but there may come a time where you have to run to the bank and get that certified deposit check. 5%,
Fast.
10%, like super fast. I felt like you were like beating me in to sing or something or rap.
No. You may have to move.
You may have to move. And so, we have those, we look them right in the eye and they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you have it liquid? You can even pull it out of a line of credit. Like, do you have this liquid where if you needed it on a moment's notice, you could get it? Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, I gotcha, bro. And then we're standing in that moment and you're like, okay, we need that $95,000. And they're like, well, it's in my RSP, which is in a
What,
GIC,
now?
which is banked at Tangerine. And it's going to take me 30 days to get my money. And you're like, oh my God, didn't we just talk about this? We've done drives to like...
I told you. Yeah.
We've driven to buyer's parents' house in Brampton, to pick up to pick up a check or something.
I think that was me.
Yeah, I think it was Corey. And if somebody's listening who knows who they were, then we remember you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we had that talk with this specific person and they told us it was fine. And then Corey's driving to Brampton somehow. But anyways, we digress.
It was fun. We got the deal done.
Really, really important to have that money accessible and not to have it locked away at Tangerine or in some type of an investment instrument that you don't have access to when you need it.
Even your TFSA as a registered account, it can take you 3 days to get that money out. And so my suggestion further to this, and you're right, we could go on about check. We could have a whole episode just about checks. But two is, the first one of the two is go into your branch and just check before you need it. Like just say, hey, listen, I have a $100,000 line of credit. I was going to use that for the deposit. If I asked you for a $100,000 deposit check right now, could you do it? And they'll tell you whether or not, there's a hold on those fees for any reason before they give them over to you. So go to your branch and make sure that it's doable. And number two, for anybody who's never had to do it, it literally is a 5-minute transaction. You go to a teller and you say, I need this. It needs to be made out to this brokerage. And they will charge you, last time I did it was $8.50, I think was the price at RBC. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $10. But in all honesty, for the advantage it will give you to have it, spend the 10 minutes. Spend your coffee break, going down to the bank, pick it up, spend the $10. You might be taking it back the next day, but you know what? You'll be kicking yourself if it came down to it and the other people had a deposit check and the same price and you weren't there with it. So just, again, part-time job, you're going to have to do these little errands to give yourself that leg up.
Oh my gosh, yes. And how many buyers have you heard bitch about the fee? They're like, but I have to pay $8. I'm like, you're buying a house for $2 million.
Yeah.
Why is this $8 so important to you? And I'm like, I'll pay it back.
So much?
Yeah, like it bothers them. Like, get over it. Pay the $8. Get the effing check and let's go. You need the check. If you want, I'll pay the $8 for you. So I don't have to hear about this anymore. Like, just, you've got to get the check. So.
It has such value. If I could go to the bank for you and get your deposit check out, I would, but I can't do that. So this is where we need you to participate and participate hard. Jump in with both feet.
And we have Fox Marin. We love our clients, but we're not writing that $100,000 check for you.
True.
Sorry.
True.